A word of encouragement during a failure is worth more than an hour of praise after success. Welcome to Vibrance, where purpose and clarity thrive. Let's talk about thriving as an encourager in a cynical age. Not just being nice, not tossing out a few positive quotes, but treating encouragement as strategic leadership and as a quiet core practice in the art of thriving. Encouragement means to press courage into another, not just to cheer them up for a moment, not to slap a smiley face sticker on a hard situation. Encouragement presses courage into someone's heart so they can stand, act, or keep going when they'd rather sit down, hide, or give up. And courage? At its root, courage is about the heart. It isn't the absence of fear or doubt. Courage says, I'm afraid, but I'm still going to do the right thing. I'm discouraged, but I'm not going to quit. I don't see the whole path, but I'm going to take the next step. When you encourage someone, you're loaning them some of your courage until their own comes back online. You're saying, until you can see this clearly, I'll see it for you. Until you can stand on your own, I'll stand beside you. That's not sentimental fluff. That's formation. That's leadership. Let's bring in our anchor text from Hebrews 10 in the New Living Translation. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. There's so much packed into these two verses. Let us think of ways. Encouragement is intentional. We're supposed to think about it, plan for it, get creative with it. To motivate one another to acts of love and good works, that's leadership language. When you encourage, you're not just handing out compliments, you're helping people move toward love, toward good works, toward the kind of life God designed them for. And let us not neglect our meeting together. Encouragement doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when we actually show up in each other's lives. But encourage one another, the author says, especially now. In other words, as things get more complicated, more confusing, more cynical, we don't reduce our encouragement, we increase it. All the more, another translation says. This is a vision of community that refuses to let cynicism have the word. We're living in a time when cynicism almost feels like wisdom. You see it in the headlines, in social media comment threads, in break room conversations. And if we're honest, sometimes in our own internal dialogue. I've seen this before. People don't really change. Oh, don't get your hopes up. Cynicism promises safety. If you don't care too much, you can't be disappointed too much. The problem is, cynicism just doesn't protect you from pain. It also shields you from joy, from hope, from being surprised by grace. Unchecked, cynicism becomes a lens. We start to interpret everything through past hurts and disappointments. We grow stingy with praise. We stop risking real encouragement because what if they waste it? What if I look naive? Encouragement pushes back on that. It cracks the shell around the heart gently and repeatedly. It says, I see what God might be doing here, even if you don't yet. Thriving in a cynical age means we don't just resist cynicism for ourselves. We actively and intentionally practice encouragement as a countercultural way of living. You see this pattern in Scripture and in everyday life. Think about Barnabas in the New Testament. His nickname literally means son of encouragement. When Saul, the former persecutor of the church, met Jesus and his life was turned, I'm going to say right side up, the early believers didn't trust him. They were afraid, suspicious, and understandably guarded. It was Barnabas who came alongside Saul, who said in effect, I believe his story. I've seen what God is doing. Barnabas vouches for him in front of the apostles. He stands next to the man nobody wants to stand near. And that act of encouragement, at a very fragile, vulnerable moment, changed the trajectory of Paul's life and ministry. One person pressing courage in, publicly, bravely, helped unlock one of the most influential lives in history. Think about your own story. Most of us can name a teacher, a coach, a supervisor, pastor, or a friend who showed up when we were losing, not winning. You'd failed an exam, botched a project, missed the shot, mishandled the communication. You felt small and embarrassed, like you'd confirmed every negative story you've ever told yourself. And in that moment, someone stepped in and said something like, "This doesn't define you. I've seen what you're capable of. I still trust you with this. I'm not going anywhere." That wasn't an hour-long speech. It might have been 2 sentences, but it pressed courage into a crumpled heart. Those are the moments we remember decades later, moments that rewrote the script that we were about to live by. That's encouragement in a downtime, in the midst of seeming failure, and it makes all the difference. Hebrews 10 doesn't just describe encouragement as an occasional reaction. It calls us to a strategy. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. That's what leaders do. They think of ways. They don't wait for the mood or the perfect moment. They build rhythms and habits. So what does it look like to treat encouragement as a strategic leadership practice? Here are a few ideas. You enter a room, any room, asking, who here needs courage pressed into them today? Do you know one question to ask yourself? The founder of Chick-fil-A told one of his employees, check to see if they're breathing. If they're breathing, they probably need encouragement. 2, you decide that part of every meeting, formal or informal, will be naming what's going right and who's growing. 3, you make it a personal policy. If you see something good, say something. Don't just think it. You frame encouragement around identity and calling, not just performance. Not only you did a great job, but that fits so well with how God's wired you. Or I see you growing into a shepherd here. This is encouragement as leadership, not decoration. It becomes one of your core values in the art of thriving, a non-negotiable part of how you move through the world. Some people will always treat encouragement like fluff, soft stuff, optional, something you add in if there's time after you've done the real work. They'll say things like, I don't want to spoil people. They should already know they're doing fine. If they need encouragement, they're not cut out for this. But not you. You know encouragement is not the opposite of challenge. It's what makes challenge possible. It doesn't remove responsibility. It creates a safety where people can actually face it. You know it's not flattery. It's telling the whole truth, including the good work God is doing that people often overlook in themselves. So while others brush it off or roll their eyes, you quietly build a life marked by intentional encouragement. You keep pressing courage into people when they're tired, uncertain, or on the edge of walking away. That's not weakness. That's strength. That's influence. When encouragement becomes part of your invested influence, the return on investment is bigger than you expect. I call it ROI squared, return on invested influence multiplied. There's the obvious return. The person you encourage may stand a little taller, try one more time, stay in the hard conversation instead of shutting down, hold on to hope when their own supply is low. But there's a quieter return in you. Every time you encourage someone, you trained your eyes to look for God's fingerprints. You tune your heart to notice growth instead of flaws. You push back your own cynicism by choosing to believe that God really is at work in other people's lives. And that changes how you move through your day. You become less reactive, less jaded, more attuned to grace. So the ROI of encouragement isn't just in the receiver, it's also in the giver. That's ROI squared. The more courage you press into others, the more God quietly strengthens your own heart. And over time, you leave a wake behind you. People who say things like, "When I was ready to quit, you showed up. When I was sure I'd failed for good, you helped me see a next step. When my faith was hanging by a thread, God used your words to hold it together." That's a deeply satisfying way to live. That's thriving as an encourager in a cynical age. If this conversation is stirring something in you, if you're thinking, "I don't just want to appreciate encouragement, I want to practice it intentionally as part of my influence," I'd love to point you to a resource I created for exactly that. My book, Influenced, explores how your presence, your words, your choices shape the people around you over time. I talk more about the role encouragement plays in intentional influence, especially when people are discouraged, failing, or in transition. If you're ready to move encouragement from nice idea into daily practice, Influence can walk with you through that shift. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Influenced by Phil Ransom. Pick it up, read a chapter or two, and let it nudge you into a more intentional, courage-pressing way of living. In the meantime, here's a simple challenge for today. Ask God, who needs courage pressed into them through me? Listen for the name that comes to mind, and then take the risk. Send the message, make the call, speak the words. In the cynical age, that small act might be the most powerful thing you do.